Well, they whipped off the wet weather gear and pulled on pinstripe suits. Suddenly, for the captains of Iceland's fishing fleets, fishing wasn't where the money was, banking was. But as bankers, they made great fishermen. They filled themselves and the rest of the world for a while and conjured up billions of dollars. But in a flash, it was all gone. Iceland and its people are now buried in debt. But where are the architects of the disaster? And will they get away scot-free? Here's Eric Campbell.
It's a small country that thinks big. For centuries, Icelanders have been inspired by their heroic sagas. Tales of kings and Vikings who set forth to conquer the world. And until recently, it seemed there was nothing this tiny community couldn't do. A nation of just 300,000 people had produced superstars like Mjög and no less than 3 Miss Worlds. It had even become a global banking centre, churning out homegrown billionaires. Educated, smart and very rich, Icelanders were the envy of the rest of Europe. But a year ago they woke up to a very different world.
Can you imagine that you have your house living in Australia or wherever you live, and suddenly your mortgage has doubled? Just over one night. You know, we were doing okay. We were doing fine. Why be so greedy?
The global financial crisis hit Iceland first and hardest. In just a few days, it suffered the biggest banking collapse in history. Within months, a stunned and enraged public rose up and toppled the government. We've come here to see what lessons have been learned, not just by Icelanders, but by the rest of the world.
Very little has been done to address the deeper causes of the crisis in Iceland. And I think, unfortunately, that is a microcosm of what's happening elsewhere. We are moving back quite rapidly in the United States, in Britain, Wall Street and the City of London, towards something like business as usual.
The capital, Reykjavik, still has the trappings of the boom that briefly made Iceland the richest little country in the world. But the good days are well and truly over. It's a broke nation full of people going bankrupt.
Yeah, that's the place.
Like Gunnar Sigurðsson, who at 50 years of age has to start all over again.
I'm living a very unsecure life at the moment. I'm going to lose my flat, which is not a very big flat. I'm going to lose my car. I'm going to get bankrupt. Not because I was a stupid guy and I wasn't trying to do my deeds, because of the way things were handled in Iceland. So excuse me.
And the people they blame most have fled with their millions, leaving others to clean up the mess. The bankers' Iceland homes are regularly spattered with red paint. Sigurdur Hreidarsson looks after the house of his son, who's now consulting in Luxembourg.
It's a horrible thing to do that. I can't know what reason the people are doing things like that. I can't understand.
And this is the second time it's happened?
The second time, yes.
When it comes to a crisis, what does these people do? They vanish. They go like this. None of these people are in Iceland at the moment. The people who are getting a lot of money paid to take a big responsibility, they just vanished.
Gunnar Sigurdsson isn't just angry, he wants to get even. This apolitical theatre director, who'd never been to a protest in his life, has morphed into Iceland's Michael Moore, using a camera to bring the people he blames to account.
Nobody was telling us anything. We had to read foreign newspapers to find out what was going on in Iceland. And that got people very angry. They wanted to know what was going on, why this was happening.
He started by organising televised public meetings where politicians were forced to face the people. It was an uncomfortable experience for a government that just weeks earlier had promised everything was fine.
Ég skil það líka hjá ýmsum sem að sitja hér í salnum að þeir vilja okkur burt. En ég ekki viss að þeir sem eru hér í salnum geti endilega tala fyrir þjóðina. Þeir séu endilega þess umkomnir að tala
That's what we call, making a political suicide, in direct television. Straight out,
Right. So they weren't used to this kind of confrontation from the public?
No, it was a kind of a, new thing for them, and also it was a new thing for us also as the common people.
Sigurdsson has also been tracking down the failed bankers, like the 42-year-old billionaire Thor Björgulfsson, now living in London.
Hvað viltu þá segja við þá Íslendinga núna í lokin sem það fólk sem glæpar? Bara kallar fólk glæpar?
Ég hef ekkert við það að segja.
Getur vel að lítið svara því, svona hvað?
Nei, ég hef ekkert við það að segja. Það ég ekki glæpamaður, það alltaf fyrir það, það ekkert við það að segja.
Ok.
Þannig að ég þarf að laupa.
Ok, takk fyrir þig.
Can you put in one sentence what went wrong?
I think it's the corruption. We gave a couple of guys the permission to use all the force of Iceland to sell actually Iceland, to sell it, to make a fortune out of it.
And leave the bill with the Icelanders.
And leave the bill with the common public.
Iceland used to make its money from its natural resources, particularly its vast stocks of fish. The fishing village of Dalvik, near the Arctic Circle, is typical of the hard-working communities that once provided half the country's wealth. Here, fishing isn't just an industry, it's a way of life. Once a year, the people of Dalvik invite their countrymen to sample home-cooked fish soup.
Lifi fiskisúpukvöldi mikla, verði ykkur öllum á góðu. Gjörið svo vel.
This year, free food was an irresistible lure for Icelanders who might previously have holidayed in Paris or New York.